All right, so today we're really diving deep into the world of biotech. Specifically, we're going to be looking at two companies, Summit Therapeutics and Instil Bio.
Yeah.
And the reason we're looking at these two is because their stocks have just absolutely exploded this year.
Yeah, they've gone up over 700%.
Over 700% this year alone.
Yeah.
So obviously when we see something like that, it really begs the question.
That's huge gains.
What is going on here? Are these just, hype stocks, or is there actually something really interesting happening here?
Right. And in this case, it's not just hype. This incredible growth is really tied to a new type of cancer therapy that they're both developing and is showing a lot of promise.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. So we're not just talking about two hot stocks. We're talking about a new type of treatment. Is that right?
Exactly. It's all about this new type of therapy called bispecific antibodies.
Bispecific antibodies.
And you can think of these like guided missiles that are designed to zero in on cancer cells with incredible precision.
Okay.
And what makes them so groundbreaking is their ability to hit not one, but two targets simultaneously.
So it's kind of like a 1-2 punch to knock out cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So one target is a protein called PD-1, and this protein is kind of like a cloaking device that cancer cells use to hide from the immune system.
Sneaky, sneaky.
Yeah. So existing immunotherapy drugs like Keytruda, for example, work by essentially removing this cloaking device so the immune system can see and attack the cancer. But these bispecific antibodies, they go a step further.
Yeah.
They hit another target at the same time.
So they take out that cloaking device, but then they also deliver another blow at the same time.
Exactly. They deliver that 1-2 punch that you were talking about.
What's that second target?
So the second target is something called VEGF.
Okay.
And this is essentially a growth factor that tumors need to build their own blood supply. So by targeting VEGF, these new therapies are essentially cutting off the tumor's lifeline while simultaneously releasing the immune system to attack.
Wow, so it's two-pronged attack.
Yeah.
You're disabling the tumor's defenses, and then you're cutting off its supplies.
Precisely.
No wonder there's so much excitement around this.
Yeah, it's a completely different approach compared to traditional chemotherapy, which, chemo just kind of acts like a hammer, damaging both cancerous and healthy cells.
Yeah, it's very indiscriminate.
Exactly.
This is fascinating. So how does this actually play out in the real world? What kind of results are we seeing? Because the article mentions Summit Therapeutics and their drug Ivonescimab. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Ivonescimab showing some really impressive results in a trial against Keytruda.
Yeah, so the HARMONi-2 trial in China showed that Ivonescimab significantly reduced the risk of disease progression in lung cancer patients compared to Keytruda.
And that's huge, considering how difficult lung cancer is to treat.
Absolutely. It's one of the deadliest forms of cancer.
Oh,
and
no.
To see these kinds of results, even in interim analysis, we're still waiting for the complete data set, but it's a very promising sign.
Okay, so it's not, a slam dunk yet.
Right.
But very, very promising early results. So Summit Therapeutics is definitely one to watch, but they're not the only player in this field, right? The article also mentioned Instil Bio.
Yeah, that's right.
What's their approach?
So Instil Bio is another company that's developing a bispecific antibody, and theirs is called SYN2510.
Okay.
And while it also targets PD-1 and VEGF, it uses a slightly different approach. You can think about it like using a different key to unlock the same door.
So they're both creating bispecific antibodies, but they're engineered in slightly different ways.
Exactly.
Tell me more about how Instil Bio is differentiating their approach.
Well, one of the things that makes Instil Bio's approach interesting is that their drug, SYN2510, it's specifically engineered to target a particular type of immune cell called a T cell.
T cells, okay.
And T cells are kind of like the special forces unit of your immune system.
Oh, so it's like sending in like a really highly trained team instead
Right.
of just, sounding the general alarm.
Exactly, you got it. So by focusing on these T cells, Instil Bio aims to create a more targeted and potentially longer-lasting immune response against the cancer cells.
That's fascinating. So both companies, again, are targeting the same two proteins, PD-1 and VEGF, but Instil Bio is taking this more targeted approach with SYN2510 by focusing on these T-cell special forces. Are there any early indicators if this targeted approach might actually be more effective?
Well, it's still pretty early to say for sure. Instil Bio is in earlier stages of clinical development compared to Summit, but they have shown some promising results in early trials.
Yeah, that makes sense. Summit's further along. So naturally, they're the ones that are getting a lot of the attention right now in the buzz. But it sounds like Instil Bio could be kind of a dark horse in this race.
So getting back to Summit for a second, their HARMONi-2 trial in China, where they're testing Ivonescimab against Keytruda in lung cancer patients, That's gotten everyone's attention. What makes this trial so significant?
Well, I think what's remarkable about the HARMONIC-2 trial is that it's directly comparing Ivonescimab to Keytruda, which, as we know, is currently considered the gold standard treatment for certain types of lung cancer.
Right, so this is like a head-to-head match between the reigning champ and this promising newcomer. Exactly. And the fact that Ivonescimab showed this significant reduction in the risk of disease progression, even in these interim results, it's a big deal. It suggests that it might actually be more effective than the current standard of care.
Wow, that's huge. But you mentioned earlier that we are still waiting for the full trial results. When can we expect to see those, and what are the potential implications if they confirm these early findings?
Yeah, so Summit has indicated that they expect the full HARMONIC-2 results later this year or early next year, so, not that far off. And if those results hold up, it could be a game changer for lung cancer treatment. We could be looking at a potential new standard of care.
That's incredible, especially given how many people are affected by lung cancer worldwide. And it sounds like Summit is thinking big picture, too. The article mentioned that they're also exploring their drug's potential in other types of cancer as well.
Absolutely. So they're currently running trials investigating Ivonescimab's effectiveness in treating other solid tumors like colon, breast, and head and neck cancers.
Wow.
So yeah, the potential applications here are vast.
Yeah, so much potential, for sure. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I think it is important to acknowledge that, investing in biotech always comes with risks. There's always a chance that things might not pan out the way we hope. So what are some things that could kind of derail the progress of these companies and these really groundbreaking treatments?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You always have to be aware of the risks. I mean, clinical trials are complex. There's always a chance that, the full results might not be as impressive as those initial, early results.
So those interim results we were talking about from the HARMONIC-2 trial, while promising, don't necessarily guarantee future success.
Exactly right. And even if a drug shows remarkable results in clinical trials, there are still regulatory hurdles to clear. The FDA sets a very high bar for approving new drugs, and there's always a chance that even a promising therapy might not meet their standards for safety and efficacy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a long and challenging road to bring a new drug to market.
Definitely. And even once a drug is approved, there's always a possibility of unforeseen side effects or complications that could emerge down the line.
Absolutely. There are potential roadblocks at every stage of the process.
Yeah, and we should probably talk about the financial implications of all of this as well. So Summit stock price, for example, has soared based on that initial success of Ivonescimab. But what happens if those full trial results aren't as impressive as everyone hopes?
Yeah, that's a really crucial point. I mean, their current valuation is based on the market's expectation that this drug is going to be a blockbuster. So if those expectations aren't met, whether it's due to, disappointing trial results or regulatory hurdles or unexpected side effects, that stock price could plummet.
Wow. Yeah, so while the potential upside is huge, the potential downside is also pretty significant.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that Instil Bio, while they're also developing a very promising therapy, they carry even more risk because they are in those earlier stages of development.
So investing in biotech, particularly in companies like Summit and Instil Bio, it's not for the faint of heart.
You got it. It requires careful consideration, a high-risk tolerance, and a long-term perspective.
Definitely. This has been incredibly insightful, but before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the bigger picture here. We're talking about, two companies that are developing these potentially groundbreaking cancer treatments. But what does this tell us about the future of oncology? What does this tell us about where things are headed?
That's a great question. And I think what we're seeing with these bispecific antibodies is really just the tip of the iceberg. We're entering this new era of cancer treatment that's much more precise and targeted than ever before.
Yeah, like we're moving from carpet bombing to these really precise surgical strikes only at a microscopic level.
Exactly. And it's not just about bispecific antibodies either. There's this whole wave of innovation happening in oncology right now, from personalized vaccines to cell therapies that can actually re-engineer your own immune system to fight cancer.
So while Summit and Instil Bio are leading the charge with these bispecific antibodies, they're really part of this much larger movement in cancer research.
Absolutely. They represent a fundamental shift in how we think about treating cancer. We're moving away from these one-size-fits-all approaches to therapies that are tailored to the individual patient and their specific type of cancer.
It really does feel like we're on the verge of a paradigm shift here in how we understand and treat this disease.
We are. And while there will undoubtedly be challenges and setbacks along the way, the progress that's being made in cancer research right now is truly remarkable. It offers so much hope for a future where cancer is no longer a death sentence, but a manageable or even curable
Yeah,
disease.
that's a powerful thought to end on. So for our listeners who've been on this incredible journey with us today, what's the one key takeaway you want them to walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that we're living in a time of just unprecedented progress in cancer research. Companies like Summit Therapeutics and Instil Bio are leading the charge with these innovative bispecific antibody therapies, and their work, along with the work of countless other researchers and scientists in the field, has the potential to truly transform the way we treat cancer.
It's a good reminder that behind all those stock tickers and clinical trial data, there are real stories of scientific breakthroughs and human resilience and this unwavering hope for a healthier future.
Couldn't agree more.
And that's something that's definitely worth keeping in mind. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. If this episode piqued your interest, we encourage you to dive deeper into the source material, explore other companies that are working in this really exciting field of oncology, and as always, keep asking questions. We'll see you next time.